Hey everybody, welcome back to Everything Under the Sun. This is Jimmy. How you doing? We're coming to you live from Fresh Air Studios in an undisclosed location in Ohio. And it's the man you hear over there, right there. That's our today's guest. Known him for a long time. He's one of the best guitar players you ever see live. He's toured all over the country, the world, and Iceland. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome blues legend, Dayton legend. We love him here at Everything Under the Sun, Noah Wotherspoon.
Thanks for having me, brother. It's good to be here with you.
Always good to have you, man. Love you jamming a little bit while we're talking. So, Noah, man, we've known each other a long, long time. You're barely 40, right? So my first time we always get started is growing up. What was the first guitar you got? When did you decide you wanted to play blues? Who influenced you? We'll get that right out of the way. Let's do it.
All right. So when I was about 10, I lived in Beaver Creek. Yeah. And I have an older brother, Adam, and his best friend, Greg. They were both into guitar music, guitar-oriented rock, some blues. And Greg was also into guitars, and he was always bringing, check out this new Strat I just got at the pawn shop. Or he'd have these stacks of VHS tapes of Stevie Ray Vaughan, that El Macambo, and then rock stuff like Guns N' Roses. I remember this bootleg of Guns N' Roses in Tokyo, and that being like a really profound electric thing to see at 10.
Yeah.
You know. And these guys seemed like superheroes to me, and I just started jonesing for a guitar. And my 11th birthday rolled around, and my brother bought me from Howard Music this sort of Strat copy of it's a Yamaha. Sadly, it got swept away last year by Hurricane Ida. It was in a storage unit out in Jersey. Yeah. But that's kind of how it all started, and I dove right into taking lessons at Ace Music with this Michael Harris, sort of a local guitar legend, virtuoso, neoclassical, all over the map player, and he was just this incredibly patient, great teacher. And I remember the first lesson he sent me home was a sheet with all the open chords and all the basic scales, and I had this, this reverence for him, and so I just, I wanted to do well, so I practiced hard for him, and I took from him for maybe a year, I think. So that's what kind of got it all rolling,
So what led you into because you're mainly a blues guy, okay? But I think you play Americana, I would say, more is what your style is now, in the blues sense. Yeah. So what led you into the blues? Well,
a few things. So I was already hip to Stevie, through Greg, and I started delving into learning some of his songs, and it seemed to fall a little bit more naturally under my fingers than some of the rock stuff I was trying. And I was at a rehearsal space, and this guy, he was in Frozen Feet, who was a folk band in town. He said, "Oh, I see you're playing some blues. You should go down to the Blues Jam that's at the Night Owl on 5th Street on Monday nights." And so my mom took me down. And I walk in, and it was the Soulcasters playing, that hosted the jam. And there's Tim Arnold, and he's playing that white Strat. And I talked to him a little bit on break, and I sat down and played his guitar for a second. I was playing some Stevie, and he was like, "Okay, I see." He's like, "That's cool, you're into Stevie, but we should get together, and I'm gonna show you what he listened to." And that was the beginning of that journey. I started going to his apartment for lessons, hour-long lessons, and that was like it was a kind of informal, abstract way of teaching. It was a lot of imagery he'd used to relay ideas. This is the Muddy Waters box. This is all these different little nicknames for things, and half of it was hearing stories about each of these blues legends, and he'd send me home with Howlin' Wolf one week, Albert Collins the next, and I was pretty immersed in it at that point. It was like just took over.
At 11.
Yeah, maybe a little further down, maybe 13 at that time. And I'll tell you another huge figure as far as influencing my what I know about the blues is Shakin' Dave Hussong, who passed away earlier this year, and he was a great friend, mentor, he was like this Renaissance man. If you don't know him, he had a show on YSO, blues show, for over 30 years, which I'd listen to on Monday nights. I'd be trying to do my homework and completely preoccupied by, T-Bone Walker, Howlin' Wolf coming through, and it was like very intoxicating stuff. I still have all the tape. I would tape every show. But he owned a guitar store, and he was a great singer and guitar player in his own right. He downplayed that, but he was as good as anybody. Yeah. And his son wound up in my first major working band, actually Griffin Hussong. Yeah. So, I started playing regularly with a band out in clubs and stuff when I was about 15 going into 16. And
that's amazing to me that at 10 you got your guitar.
Right.
And at 15 you're playing out with bands. So, I mean, let's be honest, it was natural to you. The blues and that style I think you were born with it.
That's very kind. I was also very fortunate to be born in Dayton and find myself surrounded by like this village of, mentors and people that were generous with their time and energy and stories and guidance. And I mean, just a ton of that. So it was some luck as well.
The thing of this show, we started the show was to highlight what a great music scene the Gem City has.
Yes.
And I mean, you Doug Hart, Tim Arnold, Ira Stanley.
It's deep.
Not just blues, but funk and
big time
and alternative music and you were growing up in the middle of when Dayton was at like the high of alternative music with Real Lulu and
Guided by Voices,
Brainiac, Guided by Voices,
all these facets.
Eric Giraldi, who you just played with a couple weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
I mean, so it sounds to me like as much as you were influenced by the older blues, you were more influenced by those gentlemen. Than
I would say so. These personal relationships here in town. I was copying their licks just as much as anybody, or trying to, going to their gigs and, oh, what chord is that? Okay, I need to go home, so.
Do you remember the one of the first blues songs you wrote?
Yeah, I do.
You remember, maybe give us a little taste of it?
I don't know if this will come back to haunt me, but I was maybe 14, I'm not sure how old I was, and, I guess this could be edited out if it's not kosher. But my brother was in a tumultuous relationship, so I was kind of living vicariously through him.
Yeah.
And so I wrote this song. It's called "Two-Faced Woman." Forgive me.
Well, hey, it's been a long time, so the fact you still remember it is pretty cool. So go ahead, bro.
All right, here you go. I got a two-faced woman, don't know right from wrong. I got a two-faced woman, don't know right from wrong. Yeah, she tell me she's sleeping when she's out drinking all night long. Got eyes like an angel, mind like the devil's own. She's got eyes like an angel, yeah, mind like the devil's own. Yeah, I wish I could stay here, but I'd be better off alone. That's right. two-faced woman, yeah, don't know right from wrong. I got a two-faced woman, yeah, don't know right from wrong. Yeah, I wish I could stay here, but I'd be better off alone. Yeah, she tell me she's sleeping when she's out ballin' all night long. Yeah, I wish I could stay here, but I'd be better off alone.
That's nice, man. Yes, very nice.
Thank you.
Your brother thanked you for that when you were done, right?
You know, it's sort of based on an old Blind Willie McTell thing. You know, it's subtly based on something.
I'm amazed you still know the words. You know how it goes, because I've asked other musicians, and I used to do comedy, and they used to ask, I don't remember what the first joke I ever told was. Right. You know, and that was very cool, man. Now I question this: was your brother? Yeah. Is he as good as a guitar player as you? We just don't know about him because you like hid him away somewhere so you can get him.
He played a little bit of trumpet in school, and he worked his way up to learning the theme to Rocky, and he thought that was the pinnacle, and so he hung it up. It was all, you know. I reached the top of the mountain. My dad played a little bit of guitar. He you know, had a guitar in high school, I think, you know, to impress the girls, you know. But yeah. He would just know the intro to, you know, a number of songs like What I'd Say and La Bamba. Yeah. And actually, I think I remember sitting with him, and he was the first person to just show me the shuffle, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, not a lot of music in the family. My grandpa sang a little bit, but, yeah.
That's very cool. So your parents were a major influence on you. Growing up, I mean, what was playing in the house growing up?
Oh, totally supportive. Yeah. Totally, yeah. See, my dad was in the school systems his whole life, you know, principal, teacher, superintendent. Yeah. He did workshops like at Wright State and all that. And my mom, she's just naturally a creative person, you know. She downplays it, but she's just, you know, growing up around the house, she liked old books, and she'd collect these antique books. I remember just getting familiar with like Edgar Allan Poe and Washington Irving, you know, Rip Van Winkle and Sleepy Hollow, and, you know, Shakespeare. There's like a little bit of just certain lines from that, and so it's kind of surrounded in a stew of that. And so she's influenced me, still does, creatively. My dad's sadly gone, but
sorry to hear that, bro.
you know, both very supportive, and, you know, back in the day at every show. And
well, I have three kids, and I don't know how I would react to that at 12 or 13. They've been like, "Hey, can you take me down to this open blues jam down at the bar?"
Right. Yeah.
You shouldn't be getting ready for junior high tomorrow. Yeah. You know, so that's what I was. But
take me to Fifth Street.
Yeah. And back then it was taking you to Fifth Street.
Yeah.
So let's the best things I ever heard about you was you got to play the Chicago Blues Fest, which was probably your first major.
Yes.
And please tell everybody how old you were. So
this was right when we were starting to play around town here in Dayton. Yeah. And, you know, we're doing the Fifth Street clubs and, you know, getting a little, you know, Dayton Daily News, doing things. And Paul Cuppin, that owned the Night Owl back in the day.
Oh, I know Paul.
He had some sort of friend that worked up at the Chicago Blues Fest for the Best Buy stage. And they had called him, I guess in a panic, that, hey, you know, it's in a week and our headlining band dropped out. Do you know anybody? So total fluke. He recommended us. And I didn't even get the call. I think my brother took that call, and he woke me up. He shook me. I remember being in bed. You're going to play the Chicago Blues Fest. You know, I remember this. And it was just so surreal because we had really just been, you know, playing around a little bit, and here we were playing the biggest blues fest in the world. And so we had just coincidentally finished up our first live compilation of a CD. And, you know, I just remember it was, you know, Griffin, his dad, Shakin' Dave, my parents, Tim Arnold, all caravanning up together. And it was wild. We were set up on this kind of makeshift stage right at this intersection in the middle of Grant Park, and we're getting set up, and there's some people around, and you know, we play 2, 3, 4 songs, and all of a sudden it just kind of grows into this like sea of people, and it was one of the great days of my life. I thought that I had lost that. There was a video, and I thought it was lost in that hurricane as well.
Yeah.
Turns out there was one existing copy here in town, and so I was able to get it and put it on YouTube. So it's on YouTube. It was 1998 Chicago Blues Fest.
And what you left out is that the reason why your parents had to go was there's a good chance you were not even old enough to have your license yet.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I actually didn't start driving until I was probably 22. You know.
I mean, you were 16 years old. That's the important part, folks. He was 16 years old when he played the Blues Fest. That's amazing to me.
Yeah, and that led to a whole other journey, actually, because we played that show, and the next morning they invited us back to play an early set, and it was before Jimmy Delane, and he's the son of the legendary Jimmy Rogers that played in Muddy's probably most iconic band. And Jimmy saw us play, and he came up and he gave me his card, and at the time he was musical director at this label out of Kansas called APO, and you know, they ran this recording studio out of this old renovated church, and Chad Kassem, he's like the most motivated entrepreneur I've ever known, and you know, he's into Renaissance man once again, like into stereophile hi-fi stuff, and now he's doing quality vinyl. But at this stage, he had this studio, and they're recording all these first generation blues guys, the last of the first, you know, like, oh god, Honey Boy Edwards, Hubert Sumlin, Henry Townsend. And so they wanted me to sort of get acclimated to the atmosphere, and just invited me out a few times to check the place out. So I was still in high school, and I was taking these trips out on a Greyhound. First time my mom, it was her and I, and it was this adventure on this Greyhound. I even remember I was sitting next to this convict, because we were sitting apart for some reason, and he had the ring, what do you call it? It was blinking, you know. And you know.
Yeah, whatever it is. Everybody knows what it is. You can't go more than 50 yards from the house or something like that. Yeah.
So yeah. he was maybe he was on the lam. I don't know, but he was an interesting guy. But yeah,
there's a blues song right there.
Yeah, I got one. So we got out there, and you know, we're in this old church, and it's just a typical day at APO Blue Heaven Studios, and there's Little Hatch, and there's Hubert Sumlin, you know, recording, or down in the kitchen, and you can sit down with these guys, and they're telling you stories. I'm not joking about Robert Johnson. Yeah. You know, like a couple of those guys knew Robert Johnson.
That's crazy.
Henry Townsend in particular, he lived into his 90s. They called him the Mule, and you know, I went to his house a few times out in St. Louis. But he would play opposite, you know, of Robert, you know, cutting heads, or play the same show with them, and he'd say Robert would aim the other way so you couldn't see his hands, you know. So it was pretty amazing. And we ended up doing one album for that label.
Yeah, I think I own that album.
Yeah, that's Buzz Me, and it was Marty Romey on bass and Josh on drums.
Yeah, Josh. That's the first time I saw you was with that lineup. There. That was a great lineup.
Oh yeah, we played. I think that lasted about 4.5 years, and they're still both great friends.
Yeah, you were telling me. We were talking earlier this week, and you were telling me that there's a funny story about how you and Josh got together.
Yeah.
Josh is one of the best drummers and now musicians that Dayton has produced in a long time.
Songwriter, great voice. Yeah, he's like an older brother, you know. We found ourselves, we had a mutual friend, and I don't think he's in town anymore, named Anthony Carell. And he signed him and his friends up for this Battle of the Bands at Canal Street Tavern. But this is kind of like the hippie set, you know, or the jam band kind of thing. And we get together at these warehouse spaces, but there was no preparation for our set, and we're up against bands that are, you know, they've got their stuff worked out. And so the plan is we're gonna go up with like 20 musicians, and the only guidance will be this guy with these huge flashcards that'll say, "Play pretty in G," or "Get chaotic, get wild," you know. And there was like 3 guitar players, 2 drummers, a lap steel player, a sax player, a circus, and Josh was on the far end of the stage. I'd never seen him before, and it was like John Bonham, Mitch Mitchell, Animal from the Muppets, like just wild spiritual energy. And I got his number, and I think a week later, he was in his early 20s, I think, already. And it was like, I don't know if you remember me, but we played the other day at that thing, and I'd love to jam sometime, and that was the beginning of it.
Yeah, that was a great band.
Yeah, that was knowing the Stratocats was my first major band that I had.
Yeah, that was they were, like you said, you were 4 or 5 years with them. Do you? I think I know the answer to this because you already talked about it, but do you have that moment before the Blues Fest where I asked this to everybody, when you were on stage and you were playing and you were like, this is pretty good. I can do this. Did you have one of those moments before the Blues Fest, or? To
be honest, it's almost like my whole life I've been in some strange fog, and it's just happening. Maybe in my later years when you go through challenging times and times of doubt and ups and downs of life or when things aren't going great, of like, am I supposed to be doing this? Right. Is it time to put it away? COVID was confusing. So there have been times, I'd say more in the recent, 10, 20 years where I've had to kind of reassess where I'm at or get remotivated or see that right show or hear that right record at the right time and be like, no, don't move, no, stay where you are.
Stay in the lane, I'm good. Just go with the flow.
Keep on with the journey, yeah.
Right, and what a journey it's been. I have to tell the story because when I first saw you, I was like, this kid is amazing. Now that I know that you were only 16 or 17, I'm even more blown away by that. You told me I told you that I had heard that the first time you ever played the Blues Fest, you were in the crowd and Buddy Guy asked you on stage and mistaked you for a little girl. Okay. And you actually said that story's part factual. So can you explain? Because
it's my best story and my most embarrassing story all at once. So when I was about that age, I had some baby fat going on. I had long Johnny Winter hair, and Bobby Blue Bland, the greatest blues singer in my humble opinion, was in town at Jilly's, the jazz blues showcase room of Dayton, Ohio. Jerry Gelati, he brought in everybody. So Bobby's coming in, have to go down to see him. So I went down, and it was so packed, but there was a table up front, and these Bobby ladies, these fans of Bobby Blue Bland, they said, graciously let me sit with them. And so I'm right in front of the stage, and I remember the big intro, they really when they pull out James Brown or somebody, they're naming all the songs, and they say his name like 100 times, and then he finally comes out, and I swear the first thing that happened was we made eye contact. And I thought, oh no, this feels kind of funny. And he knelt down at the side of the stage and he started singing to me. He started singing, "You're my little," something like "You're my little red hot mama," something in that wheel, in that realm. And I remember just slunking under the table, man. It was like out of body experience, right. And the place is going nuts. I mean, everybody's just going crazy,
right?
And it quiets down for a moment, and the lady knew I played, or maybe I told her I did, and she said, Bobby. I said, "What?" "He's a boy." And to this day, I remember the sound of, there was a snare crack, and like everything just stopped. And he's like, "Oh," and he's like confused, everybody's laughing, and she's like, "Yeah, he plays guitar too." And he said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Get on up here."
Why don't you show him all what he put you through on that stage?
So yeah, I remember I was so out of body, my brain wasn't working. I could have taken the stairs up on that stage. Instead, I crawled up the front of it because I was just like I couldn't think straight. And the guy, I remember his guitar player. I think he played with Count Basie as well. but he had this big hollow body, and he handed it over. And here's Bobby Blue playing, leaning over, and he's going, "All right, play like T-Bone, play like Wayne Bennett," you know. And that's the moments like you're thankful for Shake and Dave telling you about all those guys.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, well, I could maybe get in the ballpark, you know. But after the show, you know, his son was playing drums for him at the time, and you know, we got to really just have a nice talk, and I've kept in touch with Rod since. He still lives in Memphis, and he had the honor of walking Lucille BB's guitar down when they did the procession for BB. He grew up around all that, you know, and beautiful people, you know. Yeah, that's a crazy one.
That is that's the greatest story ever, too, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to play with him since then, too, correct?
That was the only time I got to really play with Bobby. I think I saw him perform one more time.
Yeah, but you've been, I think you've shared the stage with Buddy Guy. And
I played his club once when he was there, and he was a total gentleman, you know. He was just sitting at the bar, and he came here, he poked his head around and watched us play for a minute. Yeah. And I shook his hand, and he might have said, "Good playing," which, you know, what more do you need in life?
Yeah, right.
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he loved Buddy, man.
Yeah, he's coming next year here. Last tour.
Oh, it's his last. Yeah.
So, with all the right, I mean, do you have a have a favorite riff? You got something like you know, where you like you know.
I'll tell you, since we're still kind of like talking early years and stuff, and I'll tell you that one of my first favorite blues songs was one by Lyle Folsom called "Reconsider Baby," and it's been covered by like Elvis did it. He did a great one actually, but it was the first song I ever sang in public as well. And my first one of that gig was Curtis Sanford that used to play with Gerard. He was on drums, and we had Griffin on bass, and it was at Beaver Creek High School. And so here, you want me to do this one?
Yeah,
cool? All right.
Give us a little taste, man.
Well, so long. Well, I hate to see you go. Yeah, so long, pretty baby. Well, I hate to see you go. Yeah, the way that I miss you, well, I guess you'll never know. We've been together so long, baby, to have to separate this way. We've been together so long, babe, to have to separate this way. I'm gonna let you go head on, pretty baby. Pray you'll come back home someday. Come back home, baby. once said love me, baby, but now I guess you changed your mind. You said once said love me, baby, but now I guess you changed your mind. Why don't you reconsider, baby? Give yourself just a little more time.
Whew. Man, that is, yeah.
Loud,
you know what? I just thought of a question while you're sitting there playing.
All right.
I think blues is one of the few genres of music where sometimes it's better being played on the acoustic than it is being played on the electric.
There's something about it. It's a different orientation, or it's like a different intuition I think you're using, and it's definitely more intimate. Right. It's a weird thing. If you're playing by yourself too, you can kind of flirt with time, and
but that's what you know. That's what it is. Do you prefer the acoustic, or do you just it doesn't care?
I dig both realms. Yeah. I've learned to enjoy this a lot, you know, just by necessity. When I moved back to the Midwest much later on, you know, I needed to work, and I was out doing a lot of solo gigs, and really not second nature to me, the acoustic. But I had to learn how to make it work, at least to get through a couple-hour gig, you know.
You got it working, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, I forgot you moved to New York for a little while, right? Was it New York or?
Yeah. So I guess after the APO, that record, you know, I continued on with the Stratocats for a bit. I tried a few different things in Dayton, band-wise, where I was trying some new material that was not blues. And it's kind of funny because I think I was still naive, but I was really naive then, where I was in such a writing space, right? I wasn't really thinking about how it would go over. And it was kind of like a very small scale version of like Dylan at Newport, because we go out and it was confusing, I think, for half. It was like a mixed response, and I was pulling in. I've had this concurrent musical life of being immersed in blues and also immersed in Beatles and songwriters. Dylan, all up to like Jeff Buckley and Elliott Smith and people like that, and that inevitably informed a lot of my writing. And so I had all this stuff that was just kind of building up, and I was taking it out, and it kind of hit funny. And at that point, I had introduced my mom to her still current boyfriend, Navy guy, Dave, and he had a job up in Providence, Rhode Island. So I thought, you know, I'm just gonna try something different. It's close proximity to New York, so I went to stay with him for a while, and that was kind of like a change in consciousness. Like, that music scene was a sort of complete contrast to Dayton.
Oh yeah.
It was a culture shock, and I remember I'd go, you know, I didn't know anybody. I was going out alone, and I might have been projecting a bit, but at first it didn't have that same communal, warm family vibe, you know.
Right.
But there was like this weird, you know, you had like whimsical psychedelic folk music, and then there were like noise punk bands and people a lot of experimental music with loop pedals, and RISD art schools there. So it's got this whole other milieu, I think that's the word. You know, the Talking Heads and kind of an Andy Warhol experimental art vibe. And they had a blues scene too, like, you know, Duke Robillard, Ronnie Earl, that's always been there. But so that was like some years there I was sort of drifting. I was playing in different bands in Rhode Island, going into New York City to record, going into State College, Pennsylvania, and that's kind of a real whirlwindy but creative period.
In Boston's an hour up the road.
Yeah.
I used to go to Lupo's.
Lupo's Heartbreak, yeah.
I used to go to see a lot of shows there.
That's a legendary room.
Yeah, I lived in North Attleboro, that area up there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I lived up there for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know exactly what you're talking about when you're talking about the music scene up there.
It's a different bag. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Yeah, it's right. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
And it affected me musically as well because it was this different dimension of music that I was getting exposed to, and I remember trying to like go home and write after seeing this different kinds of stuff and trying to maybe match that frequency that I was picking up on, whatever that is in the ether, and I was doing more like tuning my guitar open or trying weird tunings and capoing up here and just searching for new things. And so it kind of took me out of everything I was grounded in a way. And it's kind of like a second phase of my whole musical life being up there.
You got anything you remember from that area?
I sure
like
do.
To jam with it?
Yeah, I'll switch guitars right quick. This is called Black Cloud Sugar. My head is spinning round carousel moon. Is that near the stars, humming out of tune? You walking evil, baby, you are walking tall. Your beauty is a burden to us all. You're nothing but a black cloud sugar that follows me all around town. I really should be over you, beating that dead horse till it's black and blue. These white cloud girls scare me just as much. The cookie cutter plans are frozen by their touch. With a twist of fate, I pass you in the street. Give me a kind of look only a mother could read. You're nothing but a black cloud sugar that follows me all around town. I really should be over you, beating that dead horse till it's black and blue. Doesn't make you happy. You're nothing but a black cloud sugar that follows me all around town. I really should be over you, beating that dead horse till it's black and blue.
Oh man, I really like that. That's
Thank you.
Very good, man. And you're right. It's nothing bluesy about that at all. That is
It's kind of a whole other orientation to this. Like I said, my life's it's sort of been like a concurrent musical paths that sometimes merge. Then been merging more so in the last while. But yeah, I ended up developing a second project and home for this kind of stuff, and that's Noah and the Rescue Radio.
I was just going to get right into that because over the last, I think, about 12 or 15 years, you've been lucky enough. You've got the tour Europe. We talked about this. You got the tour Europe with the band. You've got the tour Europe as support with somebody. You played Iceland. You've played Mexico.
Yeah.
And you played pretty much. Have you played in almost every state in the country?
Yeah. It's that really started up. I moved back to the Midwest and I put together a new blues trio, and we just started working the circuit again.
And that is based on...
At the time, it was Rob Thaxton and Brian Ayler. Mm-hmm. And we worked it for a few years, and we started doing these blues competitions to go down to participate in the International Blues Challenge.
In Memphis.
Yeah.
And you told me a story. You told us, Jimmy C. and I, the story that you got to put on the same stage that probably Elvis was first place he ever performed live.
Oh, you remember that, man. Yeah, that was the Old Daisy. Yeah. Yeah, so we went down in 2012 we were sponsored by Cincinnati. We won the Cincinnati competition. And we made it to the finals, but didn't place. That opened up a few doors. And then we went down again in 2015. And, the band came in second. We actually placed. And somehow I got it was the best guitar Albert King Award.
Oh,
and,
nice.
And that was life altering. It changed things and opened doors up for start playing outside, down south and out west. And then our first European offers started coming up, and it was 2016 was our first time over there. We went to play Poland.
Yeah.
And it was in this northern town called Olsztyn, and it's where Copernicus, or Copernic, they call him, lived, and his castle where he lived is there, and the stage is in front of it, and we got to go inside, and, you could see the markings on the wall where he sorted out how the solar system works and all this. I'm not the authority on that, but no, it was wild, and there's a family-run booking agency that happened to see us play that, and we've been working with them ever since, going over every year up until COVID. And we go over and we do sort of Eastern Europe, like Czech Republic, Slovakia, Austria, and it's another world. I mean, Poland especially.
Do they love American blues as much as
more
than we do?
They do. They're real passionate about it. And there's such a sort of feeling of kinship, maybe going back to the war, World War II.
Yeah.
They've always been in between superpowers, duking it out, and a lot of tragedy, and come through so much, and rebuilt cities, and they're amazing, thoughtful people, and when you play clubs there, they're listening rooms, and there's no TVs, they're giving you their full attention, almost too much. It's like, man, yeah. And but just beautiful, and it's a soulful culture. Pierogies and chicken noodle soup, and it's just got a lot of feeling. And I'm sad every time we have to leave. It feels very like home.
Yeah. Yeah, you were. We were talking the other day, and you were explaining Iceland to me when you got to perform in Iceland. How different it is to play up there.
Yeah, that came through around the same time. I was up there in 2017, and I went up, and they had a band already, like a backing band they wanted me to use, and they were great musicians, called the Blue Ice Band. And so this was the Reykjavik Blues Fest, and yeah, it's like landing on the moon. If you've never been, it's like what they call geomagic. It's like Narnia. It's crazy.
Yeah, and you were probably tall there. I'm sorry. We'll edit that part out. All right.
Keep it. No, and what's wild? There's like a special breed of horse there that they don't allow other horses to come in or out, and they've got their own little kind of body structure and their own kind of gait, But it's otherworldly, man. Yeah, you feel like you're in some kind of fantasy movie.
Well, we're gonna get it here towards the end here. Which thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like I got a couple questions for you. you're doing a lot of things right now. You said you're doing Radio Rescue Unit. You also are out with your girlfriend.
Yeah.
You want to get you're live. You want to give her a shout out. I mean, I heard she has an amazing voice.
Thanks for letting me play your guitar and drive the van up here. I love you. Yeah.
You guys do duets. So are you writing with her too?
Yeah, I hope we can record some new material in the new year. Jessie, she downplays it, but the most beautiful voice. The first time I heard her, it was just so haunting.
You made her your girlfriend.
It was. Yeah, her voice is otherworldly, and
well, that's what
she's.
Has recording, has that changed for you? I mean, has it changed in the last 10 years where now, like, the last album you made, I believe we were talking in that album, that group I'm in, and you recorded that mainly on the computer, right? At your house in Pennsylvania, correct?
Oh, yeah. The stuff we've done together is all home recording.
Yeah. So has recording changed for you that way? Are you finding it easier to do it that way? Or?
Yeah, over the years I've become more comfortable with getting a few nice, Shure mics.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can get a lot done with home. I mean, it's
no studio, no paid for studio time for one. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've done the last few blues albums at our bassist home, Tom Ratzkis, and he's great. And the price is right there, so it's
that last album of yours is just really great, bro. It kind of mixes with your Radio Rescue Unit and your blues, I think.
Yeah, things started to get integrated there, and it worked out because the material was maybe a leap in another maybe more rock and world direction, that different.
Yeah, you even had horns on that album.
Yeah, that's our collaboration. It's been for since 2019 with the Just Strange Brothers, and they're this collective of horn players, fronted by Danny Manning, and he does all these charts. And what was really neat was it seemed like even if I take the material a little farther out, having the horns sort of grounded in this Memphis thing.
Right.
So it tied the room together.
Yeah.
So that's been great. And then most recently we've expanded again with adding DeRosa Richardson, he's this brilliant keyboard player. I don't know if you know him.
Mm-hmm.
Played with Mike Locke for years. He's sort of out of the church scene, gospel, soul, funk, and that once again sort of grounds anything far out of mine that I might bring into the blues thing. And so yeah, the band keeps growing, and I'm making less money, but I'm having more fun.
Right.
So it's beautiful, man.
Well, real quick, I always end the show with two questions. First one is do you have that one song like is your favorite song? Maybe one of yours, maybe somebody else's, where you're like, every time you hear it, or if I'm in this mood, I need to hear this song. Yeah. Do you have that one song?
Yeah. Now, would this be to play or just to say?
You can play it or you can say it if you want.
Okay, I'll just say it. There's a few. It's hard to narrow it down. One happens to be a song by R.E.M.
Yeah.
That they wrote for that Andy Kaufman movie, The Man on the Moon. It's called The Great Beyond.
I know that song.
And there's something so spiritual and something I connect to in those words and the vibe of that song. Mm-hmm. I actually listened to it on the way here.
Yeah.
It's just a special tune to me. That Alan Toussaint's Southern Nights.
Oh. Yeah. A lot of people don't know about Alan Toussaint.
He's kind of a god.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he produced all the Meters stuff, and great writer, singer.
And we're both fans of the movie Almost Famous. We talked about that at Great Lakes the other day. So it's the way that movie ends, and I think it's a great question. Yeah. Do you have to be in love to write a love song? Do you have to be happy to write a happy song? Do you need to be sad to write a blues song?
I don't think so.
Yeah?
I don't think so, yeah.
It's just the way you feel?
It's a feeling. And then what's wild, I've noticed that I've written a sad song happy, and then when I did get sad, it worked. And vice versa. And I wrote love songs before I was ever really in love, and it checked out once I finally got there.
Well, so your first song was about love. Your first blues song was about wrong love in the wrong place.
Yeah.
But listen, man, Look, you've been so kind to us throughout the years. You really have. You've played Tony and I's festivals.
I love you guys.
Drop of a hat.
You guys are brothers.
And you played a couple benefits for Tony over the years. You're here for us. I mean,
always.
Dude, this was incredible. This has been Everything Under the Sun. That's Noah. I'm Jimmy. Peace.
In a black hole, 10 stories deep. This drugstore poison me, death of me. Well, turn a blind eye to the azure sky. Lost time is a heavy price, children. Lost time is a heavy price. Can I get to heaven right in the blind?